Thank you guys for joining me for my top 10 list of the best movies of 2019. Now I gotta start off by saying these are my best movies because when I saw them, for me, they were a real experience. I really got into the characters, I really got into the story, the screenplay, the shots, the action, everything about these movies really resonated with me. And I hope that you can, when you watch them and you see what I say about them, maybe you'll find something about them that you will like as well. And maybe you want to see them as well and be in your top 10 maybe. We'll see. So when I started to put together my list here, there were a few films that when I really started to consider what I wanted to put on my list that it didn't quite make the cut, but I still wanted to give an honorable mention, and that's Ford vs. Ferrari, How to Train Your Dragon 3, Angel Has Fallen, which I love that movie, Alita Battle Angel, and one I haven't seen yet because it hasn't come out just yet for my theaters is 1917, which I saw that Sam Mendes directed it and filmed it, and it looks like it's going to be fantastic. But I can't say that because I haven't seen it yet. But I do know as soon as it comes out, it's going to be the first one to see, and I don't know. I might have to change my top 10 list at that point.
10.
So when it came to this movie, I wasn't sure if I was going to put it on my list or not, but when I started to really compare it to all the other movies on the list and the ones that I didn't put on the list, I felt like it definitely deserved its place, and that's Little Women. So Little Women is a movie that's, I guess the story is older. It's like 1800s, like 1800s or something like that. And I never watched any of the adaptations. I've always heard of the film, always heard of the stories and stuff like that. But then when I actually saw this, I sat down and actually saw it last night, actually. I started to realize that this is actually pretty good. It's actually has a really good story, really good characters. When you get to all the girls, you got, let me see if I can remember, it's Beth, Meg, Amy, and Jo. Jo being the standout character. She's definitely the linchpin of the entire film, obviously because it's majority of her story, but just in how the characters interact and how it shows how they grow and they learn different lessons and they go through different obstacles with each other and with life itself, being women in that time period. It really is kind of cool to see how they learn and how they grow from these experiences. And actually the filmmaking in this film was done really well. It was shown really well. The shots were really good. I didn't really take anything away that was really bad or of any consequence, except for maybe the pacing's a little weird. At first, it's kind of hard to really understand what's going on, the difference between what's in the past and what's happening now. But once you start to really catch on, it's actually really good, and you just kind of fall into the groove of things. And even at the very end of the movie, it left me guessing, like, did this happen? Did this happen? Why didn't this happen? And I was like, okay, when I'm invested like that, you definitely got to take a top 10 spot.
9.
Now, when it comes to Rambo Last Blood, this was definitely one I was kind of skeptical about to begin with. I've never seen any of the other Rambos. 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know how many this is at this point. All I know, this is called Rambo Last Blood, right? So, thinking Last Blood, he's an old guy. He's not going to be able to do anything. He's Rambo, whatever. I know he's Rambo, whatever. But then, when you start watching the movie, and just, I say with maybe about 15, 20 minutes in, the plot gets going, and the daughter gets kidnapped, daughter or granddaughter, something like that. And then Rambo digs a knife into someone's collarbone, and he begins to pull out his collarbone. I knew then what kind of movie I was in for. And when Rambo came out, it was pitted up against between Rambo, Downton Abbey, and Ad Astra. And my best bet was like, all right, we're going to go see Ad Astra. That's going to be the best movie out of the three for sure. I went to go see it, and Ad Astra kind of let me down. I was like, all right, whatever. I guess I'll go see Rambo or something, right? And I go see Rambo, and it was fucking awesome. Like I said, I've never seen a Rambo movie before, so I guess I really wasn't sure what I was going to be in for other than it's going to be an action movie. And I guess I had a lot of throwbacks between all the old Rambo movies and then, you know, kind of showing what he can do now, being that he's so much older. and they did a really good job. I don't know the lore and everything, but this movie did what a lot of movies don't do, is make you want to go back and see the previous movies. So when I left the theater here, I was so in shock and amazement. I was like, I want to go back and watch all the other ones. Like, I really am doing myself a disjustice by not going back and seeing all the other ones. So good job for that.
8,
So this is another movie I was kind of skeptical about going into. When it comes to Mr. Rogers, I wasn't really interested in some Mr. Rogers biography or biographical movie like last year, Won't You Be My Neighbor or something like that. So when this one came out, it was like, okay, Tom Hanks is doing another movie about Mr. Rogers. Alright. I like Tom Hanks. What he's done in all his previous movies as Castaway, I never saw that either. Castaway, what's the other movie? Bubba, Shrimp, Forrest Gump, right? Great actor. But when I saw this, and just right off bat, they start doing the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood. They got the set, he's got the acting, he's got the movements and everything. I was like, whoa, this is really good. Like, I don't even see Tom Hanks anymore. I see Mr. Rogers. And then you start going through the movie and you realize it's not about Mr. Rogers, but more that Mr. Rogers is in the movie. I really start to enjoy myself a lot more. And then coming out of the movie, I realized this is one of the best movies of the year. Like, I started thinking to myself, best acting, best movie, best script, best this, best that. I was like, okay. And Tom Hanks in this movie as Mr. Rogers, he does so good and disappearing as the character. He has a couple of scenes in here, one in particular where he's talking to the main character and they're talking about his kids growing up with him as a father. And I thought that was the best scene in the movie, and how he's accepting it. He's accepting, like, yeah, you know what? I guess I did put a lot of pressure on them. I did put them in a place where it's kind of uncomfortable and it's hard for them to live up to these kind of expectations. But you know what? Maybe I am kind of hard to live with. And the guy just explodes. And he's like, that's not fair. You can't be this kind of a nice guy. You can't be that nice and that good of a guy. But that just goes to show that maybe Mr. Rogers is, he's that good. And maybe Tom Hanks, and watching that scene, does so well. Is like, how can you not just like this guy so much,
7,
Now, this is a film, when it first dropped its trailers, I hated it. I hate the trailers. I was like, man, these are the worst trailers of the movie of the year. And if I were going to rate trailers, that is, I'll definitely put this at the bottom. But it's not based off the trailers, right? It's the movie. And this is a movie that was built up off of like 20 plus movies in its time. You got Avengers, you got Thor, you got Captain America, Iron Man, so on and so on. And I thought, okay, you can't do better than Avengers Infinity War, right? There's so much action that went into it. There's so much build up. There's so many characters you have to go through. And I was like, they're going to do it again, but it's not going to be as big. Man, was I wrong. Avengers Endgame follows up not only Infinity War, but it just wraps it all up. It wraps it up in a nice little bow. It ends the storylines of Captain America and Iron Man, and it's freaking amazing. The only thing I would say is a downfall of it is that it's just way too long. But I mean, I guess you can't really help that. You have to finish up the story and give it its due. But man, this movie was just fantastic. It's the highest grossing movie of all time, beating out Avatar. The action, the fan service, the acting, I mean, it's Marvel, so what are you going to do? But it was a great movie, definitely in the top 10. Not my best movie of the year, but it's definitely up there.
6,
John Wick. Now, I think everybody was kind of anticipating this movie. John Wick has become a legend in action movie filmdom, just in general. Keanu Reeves has always been the action guy, right? When it comes to speed, the Matrix. What else has he done? He's done The Man of Tai Chi and just some other kind of off-brand movies that didn't really stick as much. But when he came out with John Wick in 2014, he had a fucking diamond on his hands. and just playing off of that Baba Yaga and just the most dangerous man alive. Do not cross John Wick. It's like the first one was just magic. It was just film magic. So when we got number 2 back in 2017, it was like, can he do it again? Yeah, he can do it again. And it was awesome, right? It was just double the action, double the craziness, double the ridiculous story. And when it left off, we left with John running away from the association of spies or whatever, the assassins. And we're like, how is he going to get out of this one? And number 3 kind of wraps that up a little bit. It definitely fills in the gaps of like what happens. And it's kind of exciting. There's so much intense action and excitement. It does falter a little bit when it comes to the script. It does have some of its problems or whatnot. Even some of the stunts, which I love the stunts, but even some of the stunts are a little like, yeah, dude kind of just stood there and waited for him half of the time. But I still love the movie. Even when it first begins and the fight in the library scene with the giant guy was just fucking amazing. John Wick. I think this is definitely a great franchise. I think Keanu Reeves definitely needs to keep it up. Definitely needs to keep doing the stunts, keep doing the action. Probably work on the dialogue and the story a little bit more. Just the way it ends is kind of, it's just comical. It's a meme all in of itself. But I really want to see more of this. I really want to see more John Wick and the Baba Yaga.
5.
Toy Story 4. Now, this is another movie franchise where I've only seen the first one, and I didn't go to see the second or third when it came out because I was kind of skeptical. Like, okay, I saw the first one when I was a kid. I really didn't need to go see the other ones. They're just Toy Story movies. They're probably not as good anyway. But then when I saw that they're coming out with a Toy Story 4, I was like, how are they making all these movies and people are still going out to seeing them? They're winning awards, I think. And I mean, what's so great about these movies? I know 1 was good, but is 2 and 3 and 4 really that good? So before I went to see 4, I saw 2 and I was like, this is pretty good. This is definitely pretty good, but probably not as good as the first one, maybe, but it's still good. And I saw 3. I was like, Toy Story 3 is awesome. It's just a phenomenal movie. And I was like, what's his name? When the kid, whatever his name is, when he leaves at the end and he turns around, he's playing with the toys, and he turns around and leaves. And then Woody's like, so long, partner. I was like, oh, that just makes me want to cry. So when I saw this one, I was like, you can't beat 3. 3 is the best Toy Story, right? And I saw 4 and I was like, oh. And then Buzz is like, no, she'll be okay. And then Woody's like, what? And then Buzz is like, Bonnie will be okay. I was like, oh, like the heartstrings. It's pulling at the heartstrings. They know what they're doing. Disney knows what they're doing. So I was like, for a little while there, I was even contemplating. I was like, I don't know which one is better, Toy Story 3 or Toy Story 4. I probably still give it to Toy Story 3, but with that being said, Toy Story 4 is right there. It's right up there. So it has to make my top 10. And actually, this is probably my number 5. This is a must-see movie. You have to see this movie. Definitely number 5, top 5 of the year, at least.
4.
Dora and the Lost City of Gold. Now, I know this is going to make a lot of people look at me like, what the hell is he thinking? Top 5? Yeah. So when this movie came out, this is another one that kind of blew away my expectations. I was like, it's a stupid Nickelodeon movie. Nobody really cares. Nobody's going to go see this movie, and I don't think they did. I was like, I'll go see it, whatever. I'm seeing every movie I can anyway, right? I know Dora the Explorer, she talks about Spanish words and discovering stuff in the wild or something like that, right? Whatever. And I went out to see this movie, and I was like, whoa. I'll say within like maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes of watching it, I was like, this is better than Avengers Endgame. To me, personally. I mean, Avengers Endgame is good for your Marvel characters and your action and everything like that, but Dora the Explorer does something to me that I was like, it's good for kids, it's good for adults, it's good for everybody. They have certain themes in here that really, I mean, the jokes, they joke on Dora the Explorer, the TV show when she was a kid, and she does this one joke, she's like, delicioso, do you know how to say delicioso? And you're looking at her like, what's wrong with her? Who is she talking to? And it's so funny. They do that throughout the movie, where she would do these things back from the cartoon show, and it's like, that's genius. That's so clever. They even have some animated scenes just like from the show. I mean, there's so much good about this movie. I will say it is definitely a kids movie. It's a Nickelodeon produced film, but I mean, I just had so much fun with it. It for a while was my number one movie of the year. That's saying a lot. It was my number one movie of the year after Avengers Endgame, after John Wick and everything. But then a few other movies came out that took the 1, 2, and 3 spot that I couldn't ignore. But this definitely sits up there for me, right next to him.
3.
Uncut Gems. Now, I wasn't really sure what to expect with this film. When I saw the trailers for it, it kind of had a mixed tone to it, because you have Adam Sandler, and right off the bat you're like, oh, Adam Sandler? Okay, back in the day with Little Nicky and Waterboy and stuff like that, he was really funny. Nowadays on Netflix, Jack and Jill and some of these other things that do over, something like that, not really as funny, right? But then you see the trailer and it's like, well, he's doing the whole the whole shtick with his voice and everything, and it's like, okay, he's still doing the voice, but it's not the same kind of Adam Sandler at all. It has such a serious, like a almost like a gangster movie. It's almost like an Italian gangster movie. This is better than The Irishman. All right, I know a lot of people are really, losing their crap over The Irishman right now, but this is better than The Irishman to me, because The Irishman was like 3.5 hours long. I couldn't watch that movie in one day, in one sitting. I had to break it up in like 2 or 3 days to watch that movie. In this, you have a full film of, it's almost like a gangster level like story. You have Adam Sandler, who's playing this gambler who gambles, and he takes all these risks, and he loses some and he wins some. You're watching him, it's like, stop doing this, stop gambling. You have a problem, and no one really they understand he has a problem, but it's just his flaw. It's just his character flaw. And you're watching and you're so invested in the movie, and it's so intense. When I left this movie, my blood pressure was just through the roof. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm feeling this dread, I'm feeling this anxiety, and I'm like, I know what it feels like to watch sports, and I know what it feels like to gamble now after watching this film. So I'm like, this is Adam Sandler's best movie. It has to be. It's one of the best roles he's ever done outside of comedy. And there's some funny points in it too, as Adam Sandler, right? But he does such a good job of being a vulnerable character and a vulnerable person. I kind of lose Adam Sandler a little bit in the role. And he even does this one part where you feel so sad for him. And then by the end of the movie, you hate him. I'm like, no, you're not the good guy. You're not the victim. You're the bad guy. You're the villain of the movie. And then by the very, very end, you do feel bad for him. It's like, this is a roller coaster. This is gonna get Oscar. This is gonna get nominated for an Oscar easily. So definitely go out and see Uncut Gems. Top 5, this number 3 of the year.
2.
All right, so now we're getting to our top 2 movies of the year. So, I mean, actually, it wasn't very hard to decide my number 1 and my number 2 and my number 3, Uncut Gems. But when it came to, I saw this movie second. I saw my number 1 movie first, and I knew exactly, like, this is number 1. This is easily number 1. And if you follow me, you already know what my number 1 movie of the year is. But when I saw this movie afterwards, I was like, this is easily my number 2 movie of the year. And that is Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep is such a, how can I say it? I might be a little biased in my opinion in Dr. Sleep, because I read the book first, anticipating the movie, because I love The Shining. And Doctor Sleep is a sequel to The Shining, and it follows, I forget his name, but it follows the boy when he gets older. I think it's Jack. It follows Jack when he gets older, and he's dealing with his psychic powers, and he's helping this kid. In the book, it turns out to be his niece, but in the movie here, they don't really say any of that. But they follow this kid who has powers like him, The Shining, but it's like times 100. And there's these shining hunters that hunt kids and other people like Jack and this girl, Abra, and they absorb their essence. And I'm like, ooh, this story is right up my alley with fantasy, right? But then when they put it into film, it was like, they did it so right. They follow the book to the letter, but then they also take some liberties and change a few things as far as the relation to Jack and Abra, some of the things towards the end of the movie, definitely some major things towards the end of the movie, where I was like, okay, I guess if you have to make an interesting movie out of it, fine. But other than that, I thought it was a perfect movie. How they did The Shining and how they used some of the powers and really pushed it and explored some of the things you can do with The Shining, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was very clever, very interesting, very different than how you see some psychic powers. It had different versions of it. It was pretty good. So if my number one movie didn't exist, this definitely would have been my number one movie of the year. But it comes in as a really good second.
1.
So, last but not least, my number one favorite movie of the year is Joker. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this coming. I'm sure you already knew. Another comic book movie, sure, whatever, but it's not your typical comic book movie. Joker does something that as soon as maybe like even halfway through the movie, I knew it was the best movie of the year. It's gonna get nominated. If it doesn't win, it's gonna get nominated. Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, as Arthur Fleck, is gonna get nominated, or he's gonna win. We all know this. Whether you like comic book movies or not, he's gonna get nominated or win. What he does in this role is just freaking amazing. He really dedicates to the physicality of it, with losing weight, and you see the bones in his body as he's changing, and he's doing all this stuff with his back and his rib cage and stuff. I was like, ooh, that's so nasty, but it's so good, right? But then how he has this tick when he's not supposed to laugh at something, but he just starts laughing out of nowhere. It's so good. You feel the pain of this character. You feel his anguish. You feel his desperation. You feel the anger in his face. And then when he just lets go and he becomes the Joker, it's like you kind of agree with him. You kind of fighting. You kind of rooting for this guy. Like, yeah, he deserves to have his day. And just some of the twists they do with like his lineage and his mother and his father, how he handles some things he does by accident. There's some relationships he has with some characters. You're like, ooh, that's kind of interesting, but it's like, did that really happen? And that's one of the cool things about the movie, but also that's the one bad thing I would say about the movie, is that they kind of play up on this thing like, did this happen or didn't it? And I don't like that. Personally, I don't like that. I think if you're going to make a movie and make a story and make it interesting, just do the story and that's it. Don't come back at the end and be like, or was it? Because then I'm like, I'm not invested anymore. It's not a good movie. If this is all a dream, then why do I care about what happens in this film or what happens to the characters? There's no stakes. But I like to believe that what happens in this film is what happens. So for me, that makes it the best film of the year. It's going to get nominated or win. But this is my list of the best films of the year in 2019. So if you have any comments, suggestions, or if you just want to share your lists, definitely let me know. Send me a message, and stay tuned for another RUFF review.